This lesson is all about learning how to make informed and intuitive decisions with ease and without second guessing yourself. And it's time to get my exact blueprint for making autonomous decisions in pregnancy and in birth. But first, I wanted to ask you a question. How have you made decisions in the past? Are you super type A? Do you make sure to gather all of the information beforehand, knowing exactly what you'll do in every situation imaginable? Because birth is different. Birth is extra special, and empowering birth experience will change your life for the better. And it starts with the way that you make decisions. There is a very popular, widespread system for making decisions in birth. Most doulas teach it, most childbirth educators teach it, and it's called the brain method. And I'm going to tell you why it is completely backwards. And then, of course, I'll show you how to use my autonomous decision making blueprint instead. The brain method tool for decision making stands for benefits, risks, alternatives, intuition, and nothing. This method states that when your care provider presents you with an intervention, this could be anything from a cervical check to a cesarean, that you first consider all of the benefits of the intervention. Then you consider all of the risks or side effects of accepting that intervention. Next, you run through all of the alternatives to the recommended intervention. And then after all of that, you consider what your intuition is telling you. And finally, you ask, but what if I do nothing? I want to start by saying, how freaking backwards is it that when you are presented with an intervention, the first thing to consider is the benefits? Because that heavily leans the choice in favor of the intervention before even considering the other four parts of the brain method. If anything, the entire process should be backwards and start with, what if I do nothing? And finish with the benefits. Because when we have doulas and childbirth educators all over the world telling moms to start by considering the benefits, imagine the influence towards accepting unnecessary interventions that has. So I threw the entire brain method of decision making out the window, and now I teach an even better method. It is called the rainbow method. It is amazing. It is just as catchy as brain, and I promise you that this system has your best interest in mind. This is your blueprint for making not only informed and intuitive decisions, but making autonomous decisions as well. So, R is for risks and research. This is where you will be considering the risks of the intervention, examining the scientific research, asking your provider, asking friends, and doing all of your own research. Your birth prep will really come in handy because you'll benefit from already knowing the risks to all types of interventions before you need to make any decisions. But don't worry, we will walk through all of the interventions and the risks associated with them throughout this course. So ask yourself, what are the possible risks of the intervention, and am I willing to take that chance? A is for alternatives. This is where you will list out all of the alternatives to the recommended intervention, asking yourself, is there anything else I could do instead to try to solve my problem? I is for intuition. This is the second and super important piece to the decision making puzzle. Now that you have all the details, it's time to turn inward and see what your intuition, your gut is telling you. Because when we forget to tune into our intuition and respect our intuition, that's when we tend to regret the decisions that we make. So make sure to take a pause and ask yourself, what does my intuition say about all of this? N is for nothing. What situation are you in that there is even an intervention being presented to you? This is all about understanding why something needs to be done in the first place. Ask yourself, is this situation a variation of normal, or is this a complication needing an intervention? Because doing nothing should always be the default. And ask yourself, what happens if I do nothing right now? Or what happens if I just wait a little bit and see what happens? B is for benefit. This is where you'll get clear on what the actual intervention is that your provider is presenting you with. What are the details? Ask yourself, what do they want to do to me and why do they think it will help? O is for obligation. This is where you will take a step back to see if there is any legal obligation. This is where you remember your legal rights and determine if there is any external pressure that might affect your decision-making process. Ask yourself, who is really in charge here? What are my legal rights? W is for what? It is time to pull it all together and make the decision. Ask yourself, what am I going to do? It could be the suggested intervention, it could be one of the alternatives, or it could be nothing. But whatever you choose, it's absolutely essential that you remember that you can change your mind at any time during your birth. You hold the key. You are the decision maker, and you can backtrack, try something different, or anything else you need to do in that moment. If something is no longer working for you, you need to be honest with yourself and ask yourself, where can I go from here? What else can I do? And what are my options? So let's run through a scenario together so you can see what the entire process looks like. Let's say the situation is you are 37 weeks pregnant and you received a single high blood pressure reading, so your provider is recommending an induction. Now, a single high blood pressure reading this late in pregnancy without any other symptoms can be completely normal. So, look at the research, look at the side effects of induction, look at the best case scenario and the worst case scenario. Now, there are many side effects that could negatively affect outcomes by inducing at 37 weeks. We will get into all of those soon. But what you'll do is you will look at all of those what ifs before moving forward. And remember when we talked about the false positive rate in the last lesson, and when you learned that even if you're diagnosed as something, there's a chance that you've been falsely diagnosed. Don't forget that that's also a possibility. Now, you will think about all the things you could do as an alternative to the induction. Remember, all of this was because of one high blood pressure reading. You could wait it out and see what your blood pressure is at your next appointment. You could take medications, either pharmaceutical or herbal supplements, to lower your blood pressure. You could ask that your urine is examinated for protein, which is a better indication of preeclampsia. You could try and stay off your feet for the weekend or do a better job at taking it easy. All of those things are options for you alongside doing nothing and along with induction. You always have a choice. So tune into your intuition and really listen to what your gut is telling you. If you decide to do nothing, it's possible you are totally fine in the end, but it's also possible that you miss other signs of preeclampsia, which could potentially lead to more serious complications. So now that all of your options are on the table, you need to weigh the risks and the benefits. And remember, these are entirely subjective to you. And then before you make a decision, I want you to remember that you are under no obligation to make a certain decision. You have the legal right over your body, and you can make any decision that you want. So now it's time to do just that. What are you going to do? Whatever it is, you are the one that needs to live with the outcome, not your provider, not your doula, not me. And never, ever, ever forget that you can change your mind at any time during your birth. We make decisions, but we don't cling on to them. We don't make a big deal about it, and we certainly don't subscribe to the notion that we can't pivot at any point in pregnancy or labor.